Curious and curious. Today we bring to the channel a series of discoveries under the sea that will surely be very interesting for you. But before you start, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We start. Chuuk Lagoon. Let's get in situation. We are in the state of Chuuk, a group of islands in the Western Pacific that are part of the Federated States of Micronesia. Chuuk is in fact the most populous of the four. The known history of these islands begins in 1528, when they were discovered by the Spanish navigator Alvaro de Saavedra. In fact, these islands were claimed as part of the Spanish Empire, but certainly Spain never had control over the aboriginal population of the area, nor did any Spanish settlements ever arise. We arrive in 1944, the moment from which the events that make Chuuk a very appealing place for diving lovers take place, especially if they are also history lovers. But let's go back to World War II, and the attacks on Chuuk by the Japanese in 1944 were so brutal that today, Chuuk Lagoon is the world's largest underwater military cemetery. In it lies more than 60 ships and about 400 aircraft. In addition, the diving conditions of this lagoon are very good, with visibility from 15 to 40 meters and minor currents. The nature that inhabits the lagoon is also very interesting, since more than 700 species of fish and beautiful corals inhabit it. The Yonaguni Pyramids. The Yonaguni Pyramids are a set of structures discovered on the Japanese island of Yonaguni around 1985. The attacking Japanese submariner was the one who found them by chance. It is a megalith that was probably out of the sea during the Ice Ages, which has shapes on its surface that seem to have been carved by humans. There has been much speculation about the origin of this monument, as it is called in Japan. For various geologists and historians, the structures could have a natural origin, while others argue that these structures show artificial and human work, at least in part. On the pseudo-archaeological side, other authors suppose that Yonaguni was part of the Mu civilization, whose fate would have been similar to that of Atlantis or Thule. The area currently attracts a large number of tourists attracted by the amazing structures. It would be a construction carried out at least 10 millennia ago, which would make it, together with the Göbekli Tepe Sanctuary, the oldest known architectural structure, long before the first buildings in Mesopotamia, Egypt, India and China. The yacht sunk in Antarctica since April 7, 2012, and for about a year the Brazilian research vessel Mars Sinfim could be seen under the icy shallows of Maxwell Bay in Antarctica. It all started when the 23-meter vessel, owned by Brazilian journalist João Laura Mesquita, hit the ice while carrying a crew of 4 researchers filming a documentary as the ship began to sink. The crew was rescued by the Chilean Navy. During the next few months the ship could be seen from the surface under 30 feet of water. A year later, the same owner, João Laura, returned to the site to save the ship. The vessel surfaced with the help of inflated buoys and was then towed back to shore. After a year covered in seawater, Endless Sea was deemed irreparable. Cleopatra's underwater palace Alexandria was founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BC. This city, named after the emperor, settled on a site in the Nile River Delta, and in the 1990s, the Council of Antiquities and the European Institute of Antiquities embarked on a research project in the area of the Port of the This, where one of the largest underwater sites in the world was found, where authentic archaeological treasures have been found. In the Bay of Alexandria, statues of characters such as Osiris, effigies, fragments of granite tables and Roman capitals have been found, among other objects from the Pharaonic, Hellenistic and Roman periods. The set of submerged monuments made up of the palaces and monuments from the time of the Hellenistic dynasty of Ptolemy, sank due to successive invasions, earthquakes and the rise in sea level. All this exploration, research and recovery of remains of past civilizations opens a window to the past, to the time when Alexandria was one of the most prosperous cities in the Mediterranean. To this day, you can still dive in the area and witness some of the statues or effigies that populate the luxurious palace of the emblematic pharaoh. It is true that there are more museums under the sea in the world, but none as special as this one. The Lanzarote Underwater Museum. Inaugurated in 2016. The Atlantic Museum in Playa Blanca is the only underwater museum in Europe where you can dive among the impressive sculptures of the artist Jason Decaires Taylor, known for his underwater creations. The Museo Atlantico was developed as a huge artificial reef and consists of 10 different groups of sculptures. For example, the Rubicon, a group of 35 sculptures of people walking towards a beautiful wall with an opening. The real residents of Lanzarote have been used as models for these sculptures. You can also see the famous Lampedusa raft, a reference to the refugee crisis in Europe. Another part of the museum is a group of children in small boats called Los Plateros. In addition, there are several images that are half cactus and half human that represent the intertwining between man and nature. Referring to modern society and technology, there are also sculptures of various photographers and a couple taking a selfie at the portal. A figure looks into a mirror in which the surface of the ocean is reflected. The Deregulated shows a playground where businessmen in suits play on a seesaw. The last group of sculptures shows about 200 figures of people arranged in a circle with this impressive reef of images. The artist wants to draw attention to the beauty of the underwater world and the need to protect it. The skeleton cenote in the city of Tulum, in Mexico, is this spooky cenote. Its morphology is circular and with abrupt walls due to the evolution of the karstic massif. The cenote begins as an underground chamber produced by the dissolution of the limestone rock by the infiltration of rainwater. Finally, as the cavity increases in size, the cenote ends up coming to the surface due to the collapse of the dome. The cenotes were formed during the times of lowering of the sea level during the glacial pulses of the Pleistocene. These cenotes are mostly expansions of complex underground fluvial networks. Specifically, this underwater cave is one of the most dangerous in the world. The divers are warned by a sign at the entrance of the cave of the danger of the place. Only the most adventurous and brave dare to inspect it. This unsafe labyrinth is responsible for several dozen deaths a year. The Titanic is the most famous shipwreck in the world. The massive British liner, twice the size of an Airbus A380, was struck by an iceberg in 1912 before sinking in the Atlantic. Its discovery dates back to 1985 and the immersions in its remains outraged the entire world due to the high number of fatalities and the mistakes made in the accident. Public inquiries in the United Kingdom and the United States led to major improvements in maritime safety and the creation in 1914 of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, which still governs maritime safety today. Many of the survivors who lost all their assets and the tragedy were helped thanks to public charity. But others, like White Star President Bruce Ismay, were accused of cowardice for their premature abandonment of the ship and condemned to social ostracism. Undoubtedly, for the curious, the sinking of the Titanic is one of the greatest maritime tragedies. Curious and curious. Leave your like if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel so that we continue to bring new curiosities every day. See you in the next video.